All right, could everybody see the screen and can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, so I'll get started with the lesson then. Um, so number one, the line in the XY plane above are the graphs of two linear lines. What is the solution XY to the system formed by the equation? So basically, when the SAT asks you what is the, wait, let me get the pencil real quick. When the SAT asks you what the solution of a problem is basically an indication of at which point the two lines intersect. So as we can see, there's two lines on the graph above. The intersection point will be marked right here at this point, right at this point that I just circled. And it is supposed to be written as X, Y. Basically, what the X coordinate at that point is and what the Y coordinate at that point is. So as we can see at the point of intersection, the X coordinate will be -1, while the Y coordinate will be 2. So therefore, we can fill out -1. Sorry, I'm not used to writing in the screen, so excuse the handwriting. So -1, 2 should be the answer to this question. Is there any questions about this problem? All right, I don't see no questions about this problem, so I'll just move on to number 2. A checker enthusiast is customizing a checker set by painting a design on which each of the 24 checkers in the set. It takes the enthusiast 35 minutes to paint the design on each checker. If C of the checkers are already painted, which of the following represents the number of additional minutes needed to finish painting this set of checkers? So basically, we were given the variables 24, 30, and C. The first thing that we should do is label what these numbers and unknown numbers mean. So 35 in this equation is the minutes we need to paint each checker. So we will put 30 minutes per checker. 24 is a total amount of checker pieces there are. And of course, C, which is like an unknown number, is the amount we already painted. So to find out the amount we have left, we have to subtract the total by the amount that we did. So the total in this case is 24, while we already painted C amount of checkers. C is an unknown number. So we could put 24 minus C, and that will give us, and this will give us the amount of checkers that we need to still paint. So if each checker takes 35 minutes to paint, would it be reasonable to multiply by the amount that we still need to paint in order to get the total amount of minutes that we need? So this kind of corresponds with the answer choice C. Like another way of thinking about it is if it takes 15 seconds for each pencil. So if you multiply this by the amount of pencils you have, so P, when you cross multiply, you will find out that your response will be the amount of seconds, minutes that it will take to complete the task. Is there any questions with this? All right. So for this question, we're just trying to find the sum of these two values. Since is a sum is an indication that is addition. Because it's addition, we can leave all the signs within the parentheses the same. So we could just write 3x to the fifth plus 4x squared plus 8 plus 12x to the third minus 2x squared plus 6. All I did was copy down the two values that the SAT want us to solve. So in order to simplify this, we can only add the values that has the same power numbers. So we will start off with the biggest power number, which is the 5 over here. So there is no other values that has, oh, there was a glitch. Oh, I apologize. But if you need me to like re-explain something, you could just type it in the chat and then I'll just re-explain it. But what I was just saying is that in order to simplify this, you would need to find, you need to add the exponents. In this case, we need to find a value as x to the power of 5. In this case, the equation does not have any values besides this one that has x to the power of 5. So we will just copy this down. The next one will be to the power of 3. There's no other values in this equation that has a power to the third. So we will just copy that down. As we move on to the square root, we will see that there are two values that has the same power, 4x squared and negative 2x squared. So we could combine these. So positive 4 and so we could combine these due to the fact that they have the same power. And then find out that this is to 2x squared. So we could bring that down. And of course, we are left with numbers without any unknown values so we just need to combine 6 and 8, which we will get 14. So this will match to answer choice B. All right. So for number 4, we're basically trying out the equation of a line. So this question states, line L is shown in the XY plane above, which is this line right here. That's line L. Line M, now shown, is parallel to line L and passes through the point 0, 3. Which of the following is the equation of line M? So what we need to understand is that if two lines are parallel, they will have the same slope. And in order to find the slope of a line, we'll use the slope formula. The slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 at 1. And x's and y's of these values, all we need to do is go to this graph and pick out 2 points. So from this graph, I'll pick out this point right here, and I'll pick out this point right here. This point is 3, 0, and this point right here is 0. We could label this point up here as x1 and y1, while we could label this point down here x2 and y2. It doesn't really matter which coordinates you put as x1 and y1 or x2 and y2. Like at the end, you'll get the same result. So at this point, we're in points that we just found. So y2, which is 0, minus y1, which is 2, over x2 is 3, is x1, 0. From here, we will simplify this equation to find out the slope. On the numerator, we will get -2. On the denominator, we will get 3. As we said before, due to the fact that these two lines are parallel, they will have the same slope. In this case, the only answer choice with the slope of -2/3 and choice A. So I'm not sure if all you guys took algebra or geometry, but in order to get this, we will also use the formula y equals mx plus b. In this case, m is the slope, while b is a y-intercept. So when we fill this in, we can replace this value as m. And this value, as we said, is the y-intercept, which is 3. It is stated above in the question. And if you don't know whether or not the value b is 3, all you got to do is this. So this is the equation that we have if we don't know b is 3, right? We know that 3 in this equation, right? So all we need to do is plug in x as 0, y as 3. If we plug in y as 3 and x as 0, anything that is multiplied by 0 is 0. So we can find out that b is 3. Any questions? All right, so the important formula for this, does math? So the no calculator portion of the SAT, which is this portion right here, focuses more on algebra 1 and geometry, yes. And then towards the calculator section, I would say it focuses on a mixture of geometry and algebra 2, which is trigonometry. But I feel like if you learn like the certain formulas, it should be easy, and then you should be able to answer these questions without having to take the classes. But I'm not saying that you shouldn't take the classes. All right. So the two important formulas to remember for this question is this one, and this is called the slope formula. You will use this formula to find the slope. And this is a slope equation. So basically this equation, this one right here, it is basically an equation of how the line should look like. But I'll go more in depth about how to use these two equations afterwards, and I'll make sure I jot them down and I'll share with you after the class. All right, so number 5. So this question states, what are the slopes and the y-intercepts of the graph in the xy plane of the equation 5x plus y 4y plus 3 equals 0? So basically, this goes back to the last question in which we both have to use y equals mx plus b. The question is basically telling you to go from this to this in order to find out the y-intercept and the slope. All right, so let's transform this into the original formula. As we can see in the original formula, y is separated from b and x. So we would move x and b. By the way, b is always a number. It's just a regular number. It can't be like 5x. It can't be multiplied by any unknown. It's just a regular number. In this case, the b is 3. So we moved what I did here was I separated y from every other variables. If you pay close attention to the top formula right here, you can see that y is by itself without any numbers. In order to separate y by itself, we'll multiply everything by 4. So by doing something to one side, you must do it to another. So in this case, I divided both sides by 4 to leave y by itself. This is the equation that we should come up with. And it looks just like the original equation. And as I said before in the last problem, m in this case is the slope, while b is the y-intercept. So as we could see, b in this case is negative 3/4, while m is negative 5/4. So the slope m is negative 5/4. So based off of that, we could eliminate c and d, and the y-intercept is b. In this case, b is negative 3/4. The only reason answer choice B is wrong is because they said that the y-intercept is positive 3/4. And of course it's false because we're looking for the negative 3/4. So 5 is A. After this class session, if we have time, I will go over more examples of the slope formula as it takes up majority of the no calculator section of the SAT. So for this question number 6, all we need to do is solve for x. right? When they give you a value with the fraction, you have to try your best to take out that fraction. In this case, we have a fraction of 1/4. In order to take out this fraction, we can multiply this whole equation by 4. What I did there was I distributed 4 to both sides of the equation. And we get this. So to solve for x, all we need to do is move x to one side and move the numbers to another. In this case, we want to move this value, which has an x, to this side, while this value with the number to another. So in order to move to one side, we could add for x on both sides. But the only issue right here is that 8, which is a number, is still on one side. So in order to get rid of that 8, we could add 8 to both sides. And the question is asking for x. And what we have here is 5x. If we divide both sides by 5, we will get that x is 4. Is there any questions on this page or this question in general? How much time are we given for the SAT? This section, you're supposed to only have 25 minutes. And I believe this section give you like 20 questions, I believe. But distribute the 4. So basically for number 6, if you want to solve it as a fraction, you can solve it as a fraction. It doesn't really matter. I just multiplied, I just got rid of the fractions because I feel like it kind of ease out this problem and make it more simpler. But if you want to solve it, you could do that. But I feel like the first 10 questions of the no calculator, you should rush through it, and then you should focus more on the there's like a section at the back, and it provides you with 5 written response questions, and I feel like you should focus your attention on those. What is, oh, this is not a this is an actual SAT that they distributed 2018, I believe. I gotta verify it, but this is an actual SAT. They gave this as an actual exam. Yeah, no problem. All right, so number 7, what is the solution set to the equation of something multiplied? When something is multiplied by another and the answer is 0, what we could conclude is that one of these values should equal 0, right? So all we need to do to find the answer is to set both equations to 0. That's all we need to do. So we could square root both sides for this equation. X plus 2 equals 0, x equals -2. This is one of the answers you will get. The second answer, we will add 1 to both sides, and then we will divide 2, and we will get 1/2. This is the second x coordinate that you will find. In this case, it will be -2 1/2, which is 8. So in order to verify that your answer is correct, all you need to do is plug in these 2 points into x, right? And then if the value gives you 0, that means you got the answer. To simplify this question is basically asking you, what is the value of x that you could put in this equation that will give you the answer choice of 0? That is the reason why I set both of them to 0, because when you multiply by 0, you will number 8, 3 plus 4i minus parentheses 2 plus 3i. In this case, you might some people might get confused about, oh, where did the I come from? All you need to do is simplify this equation and think of the i's as x. So if I kind of long, you can replace I as x. So 3 plus 4x, because I is like an unknown. I, in this case, is an imaginary number. It isn't defined, because right here, as you can see, the SAT tells you I equals the square root of -1. You can't square root anything that is negative, and that's why I is an imaginary number. Wait, are you guys comfortable with solving this question with I? Because if that's the case, I would just solve it with I rather than using X as the example. Or you want me to do both? Is whatever. Yeah, so all right, I'm getting like mixed, so I will just do I and X. But the reason why you haven't been seeing I in math class, I saw I in math class in like trigonometry, I believe, but we only touched on it for a day because, as I said, is an imaginary number. So it, in other words, is in a, so I'll just use X as the first example, and then I'll just use I in the second example. All right, so in order to simplify this, we need to understand that we could copy the first equation down, but on the second equation, we need to be careful because we see a negative sign right here. Negative sign, we should know that like a positive times a positive equals a positive, a negative times a negative equals a positive, and a negative times a positive equals a negative. If you don't know this, you guys could copy this down. Yes, exactly. So due to the fact that this is a negative, we have to use -2. And as we said above, a negative times a positive is a negative. So is -3. From here, we simplify. We have to add the unknowns with the unknowns and the regular numbers with the regular numbers. In this case, the regular numbers are 3 and -2. 3 plus -2 is basically 3 and that equals 1. The second one, which is one with the unknown, is 4x and negative 3x. So from here, we know that this is x. So this is 1 plus x. As we said above, x equals I. So we could also replace this as, we could also rewrite this as 1 plus I. This is b. I'm gonna redo this equation with I because some of you asked for it. So I'm gonna just, give me a second. I'm gonna just copy this down. I don't know about, but please excuse me. Like I'm not comfortable with writing on like the screen and stuff. So yeah. So now I'm gonna solve this with I. I'll just copy the first equation down, equation this. And then as I said before, when the negative is being distributed, negative times a positive is a negative. So -2 in this case, and this negative times a positive is still a negative. So this will be a negative in this case. We will add the imaginary numbers together, and we will add the regular numbers together. When we add the regular numbers together, we will find out that the regular number equals 1, while the imaginary numbers equal positive 1. In this case, we will get the answer choice of B. So are you guys comfortable with the problems that have I in it? Because if not, after this section, I'm pretty sure we might still have time, and then I'll go over that too. All right, so this for this problem, we're trying to find what the x is. In order to find x in this question, we could cross and then we could simplify. After we simplify, we can move x to one side while moving the numbers to another. So we can subtract -2 from both sides. And then we could subtract 3 from both sides. And we'll get -5. Do you guys know how to solve for x? Or like, if some of you don't know how to like solve for x, like do all of you know how to solve for x? All right, cool. So yeah, if you don't, you could let me know, because majority of the no calculator section asks you to solve for like x or y or whatever unknown that they want you to solve for. In the function above, k is constant. If 2 is a 0 of the function, what is k? All right. So if 2 is a 0, right? So in the SAT, when it tells you something is a 0, it's basically saying that if you plug in that number into x, y will be equal to 0. This p of x is y, is a fancier version of y. So if we plug in 2 into the x above, this P of X is supposed to be 0. And from here, all we need to do is solve for K because that's what the question is asking. So 2 to the power of 2 is 4. 11 times 2 is 22, and plus K equals 0. Negative 18 plus K . Oh, so since some of you didn't hear me, when it tells you if a number is a 0 of a function, is basically telling you that if you plug in that number into X, the value of Y, in this case is P of X, is 0. So all I did here was set P of X to 0 and plug in 2 as X. So in order to solve for K, you just add 18 to both sides, and we find out that K is 18. So that is answer choice D. For number 10, the answer choice was D. I will post the answers to all the questions after on Google Classroom. For number 11, we're trying to find out which of the expressions is equivalent to the expression, which is this. So we're basically, the question is basically asking us, simplify this, right? So in order to simplify this, we will need to find the same denominators. We will want to make this right here have the denominator of 6x squared. In order to do that, we can multiply the numerator and the denominator by 2. So we'll get 4 over 6x squared. So 4 over 6x squared is equal to 3x squared, right? So we can replace that with, right? Do the denominators are the same, we could combine them and just solve for the numerator. And then from here, we simplify. All right. And then as we could see, the answer choices does not have this answer. So we could divide the top and to simplify it. And we should get 1 over 2x squared, which is the answer choice D. So number 12 is solve for x again. All we need to do is bring the values of the same denominator to one side and cross multiply. In this case, we have the same denominators here, since both of the denominators are x minus 3. So in order to bring that to one side, we could subtract x on 1 over x minus 3 on both sides. And as we said before, due to the fact that the denominators are the same, we could just deal with the top and leave the denominator. We could combine the denominator. So you guys could take the harder approach and cross multiply and stuff. But if you look closely, right, the numerator and the denominator right here are the same. And if the numerator and the denominator are the same, that fraction is equal to 1. So we could replace this whole thing by 1. Another way of thinking about it is like 4 over 4 is because you're dividing something by itself. In this case, you're dividing x minus 3 by itself. And that's why we get 1. From here, we could cross multiply. And we could get x equals to 1. Interest 8. That kind of saves you some time from multiplying it in this form, which will be time consuming and people might make mistakes from there. All right, so number 13, all you need to know for this problem is how to read a graph, how to read an equation. Like there really isn't no math involved in this question. Well, like whether like understanding the formula, I guess, is math, but so looking at this equation, I just copied this down. So looking at this equation, the 60 out here is represented as the initial value. The 3, the rate. This, the bar is, you guys could copy this down because this is the same for all exponential equations. So initial, rate, and time, that's how you're supposed to write it. In this case, t, as stated above, is representing days. So we could see that in 2 days, the microorganisms increases at a rate of 3. All right. So is there any questions about how to read an exponential graph? All right, I'll just post something on Google Classroom about how to graph, just in case some people don't know how to read a graph or still have some confusion about it. So it triples every 2 days. All right, I'll quickly go over the last 2 questions real quick, and then I will have to dismiss you guys until next. So for for this question, it gives us two points, two equations, and then in order to find the coordinates, all we need to do is set them equal. We can move everything to one side, and we could solve. And then we will have to add these coordinates because they're asking for the sum. I'm gonna rush through these because we don't have much time left, but I'll post everything in classroom afterward. So for this, all we gotta do is this. And this is supposed to be the answer. I'll post a more in-depth solution to it, but it came to the end of this session. So email me if you need any more explanations towards any of these problems, but I'll post the solutions to every single one of these problems in Google Classroom after the session. All right. Is there any further questions that you guys want me to answer? All right. So since there's no other questions, you guys are dismissed, and I'll post everything afterwards with the solution. Thank you, guys.